Hey up. Time for a bit of a big one. A film that I've been dying to discuss on this channel for many years. A classic and notorious video nasty, and spine number 12 of the Hard Gore collection. We're looking at I Spit on Your Grave. This is a 1978 rape revenge film directed by Meir Zarchi, who you may recognise from directing Don't Mess With My Sister, a film I've mentioned a few times trying to figure out if it's part of the collection or not. And he also directed this film's direct sequel, I Spit on Your Grave Deja Vu. So the film stars Buster Keaton's great niece Camille Keaton in a role that kind of put her on the map. And this film was probably the most infamous, next to Cannibal Holocaust, of the video nasties. It was banned and butchered by the BBFC and even ended up spawning its own little remake franchise of various quality in the 2000s. I think this is the first Hard Gore DVD I ever bought. I was far too young and I got it from CEX back before they used to check IDs, which was lucky for me. So, let's have a look at it, shall we? And a little warning before we move on. One, subject matter, but also I might not be able to use as many clips as I usually do. I like to use the clips to show examples of what I'm talking about, but I'm pretty sure YouTube doesn't like 90% of this film, so I'll have to see what I can do. It might be a little clip light.
Where I come from, people weren't that enthusiastic about their place.
Where's that? New York City?
Mm-hmm.
You come from an evil place.
You don't say.
The plot follows Jennifer Hill, who moves out to an isolated cabin in the woods so she can get some peace and quiet while she writes her first novel. Unfortunately though, she is attacked and raped by 4 local guys, so she sets about getting her revenge on them. It's a simple story, and it does suffer from its pacing here and there, but for the most part, I did find it to be an effective and quite difficult watch, which is kind of what I'm looking for with the genre.
Fucking asshole.
Wait, no. Could I be your friend?
Sure.
The acting ranges from pretty silly to really good. Keaton is fantastic in this, and it must have been one tough role for her to do. Richard Pace as Matthew is probably about as comical as we get in this film. It's weird that there is a character that's a little comical, but he has most of the silly lines, but it's not too frequent. Obviously, this film is very violent. Sure, there's blood and there's murder, but the real focus is on this 20 minutes of 3 attack scenes by the Gang of 4. Pretty brutal and pretty effective. Pretty good. Yeah, difficult to watch. Obviously there's a lot of nudity in this as well. None of it's really played for the sexiness of it. It all just works to make the characters more vulnerable and to make the audience more uncomfortable. Unfortunately for this film, the version that I watched, it is the cut version. So during the attack scenes, we get a lot of repeated shots, and it almost feels like, it almost loops the shot, and it feels like someone's just shoved a GIF in the middle of it, and it's very, very distracting. A positive thing though, that I did notice on this rewatch is the lack of a soundtrack. There is no music added over the top. There's a bit of diegetic music, is that the right term? Diegetic? No, I can't remember. It's been a while since I did film studies. There's a bit of music in the scene, but there's no soundtrack added over the top of it. And I think that this was an excellent choice. It kind of grounds the film, and while it may work against some scenes, making them feel maybe a little duller than they would have with some music, for the most part, it just creates this isolated atmosphere I thought it was really effective.
And I wonder if they gotta take a shit too. Hey, all women shit. Women are foot.
Watch out!
So as I said earlier, this film was butchered by the BBFC and it was banned in the UK until 2001, where this version was released with around 7 minutes missing, and with scenes repeated or slowed down to sort of bulk up the runtime. It's mostly the nudity that they focused on getting rid of, so we just cut back to the bad guys pulling faces on a loop, and it's awful, really. It's terrible. And still, to this day, this film has not been released uncut in the UK. Closest thing being the version that I have on this Kaleidoscope release. There are other versions of it floating around in the UK. A few companies have released it, but I have this one, and this has just under 2 minutes missing. And it also came in this little box set, which is cool because it contains all the remakes and its sequels and all that sort of stuff. Nice little set. So once again on this channel we do have to say, fuck the BBFC. Fuck the BBFC for not thinking that the people of the UK can handle a fully uncut version of a 70s exploitation film. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid. But anyway, back to the film. So Meir Zarchi did return to the franchise. He produced the remake and its sequels, and then he wrote and directed Deja Vu, which is the 2019 sequel to the original 70s film, and even has some of the cast from the original film returning in it. While we're here, why not have a little look at these remakes and sequels? I don't really know when I'm going to get much of a chance. I might do a series on them in the future if people are interested, but for now let's just do a little summing up, shall we? So the remake I thought was pretty damn good, to be honest. I like this one a lot. I thought it was good. In some ways it may even surpass the original. Then I Spit on Your Grave 2 I thought was good. I thought there was some really good effective scenes in it, and some bits that I wasn't massive on, but it didn't ruin the film for me. Decent. I Spit on Your Grave 3 I thought wasn't great. Not the worst thing I've ever seen, but not amazing. Yeah, just a bit under middle of the road. And lastly, the Meir Zarchi I Spit on Your Grave Deja Vu I thought was absolutely awful. Far too long, not a lot happens, boring, terrible.
Suck it, bitch.
So a little more history on this film. It was famously hated by Roger Ebert, who called it a vile bag of garbage in his review for it. And it also became sort of the main focus, or one of the main focuses, for Siskel and Ebert's movement that they tried to do to stop women in danger in film. Roger Ebert's gone on to say some really weird stuff on this topic, like when he lambasted David Lynch for Blue Velvet, saying that he was abusing Isabella Rossellini. It feels at some point the line between real life and acting just got too blurred for him. Too many movies, maybe. Obviously the film is super controversial though, and from what I've read, I don't know if this is correct or not, but it has one of the longest rape scenes ever in a film. In the uncut version of the film it goes on for nearly 25 minutes. It is split up into 3 attacks, but it does kind of just play out as this one long thing. In the version I watched it was around 20 minutes because of the cuts and stuff like that. Apparently as well, a handful of the cast and crew had to bow out during filming because it just got a little too much for them. The title of the film, I Spit on Your Grave, wasn't used until a 1980 re-release. Now Meir Zarchi has gone on record saying he absolutely hates the title I Spit on Your Grave and prefers Day of the Woman, which is why on every release that's been put out since, it says AKA Day of the Woman on the cover, and it was on the posters and stuff. That was his little caveat. But you know, I Spit on Your Grave sells, doesn't it? And one last tidbit before we go. The famous poster and DVD cover for this movie this isn't Camille Keaton, this is in fact Demi Moore. Weird.
Take off your clothes.
I don't like women giving me orders.
I spit on your grave.
Okay, let's have a look at this print then, shall we? First of all though, before we crack on with that, I do want to say that this is the special edition case that I have, that I got as a teenager, but the disc inside is just the standard version, so if you're keeping track with the spine numbers, the special edition is spine number 12, but the disc, the standard edition, is spine number 5. So we would have talked about this earlier had I known that I had the wrong disc. But oh well. The print, anyway, is absolutely awful. It's terrible. It's really low quality. There's VHS flickers. It's washed out. It just looks terrible. Worst of all, as well, it's one of those where it's 16:9 the film, or widescreen, and then that's shoved into 4:3, so the file on the disc is in 4:3 with the 16:9 in the middle, and then that's played on a widescreen TV, so it looks like you're watching it in a little box in the middle. The audio is also just terrible. Now I know the audio isn't good for this film just in general, but in this case, I did do a comparison with the Blu-ray that I have. In the DVD's case, you cannot tell what people are saying. Most of the time it's just mumbling and garbled, and it sounds awful, really bad. And one last thing that I noticed as well, for a frame, like a single frame right at the beginning of starting this film, there's a logo that pops up for, what is it, Elite Entertainment Group. Just pops up right at the beginning and then disappears, and I'm guessing that this is a VHS rip, and I'm guessing that this is the company that they stole the VHS rip from. And on the disc, we get nothing at all. We barely even get a menu here. It just comes straight up with a chapter select screen, and that's your lot. Pretty awful release, really. Okay, case time, and as I said in the last section, this is the special edition case, so it advertises all these special features which we do not get at all. It doesn't look like there were loads, but still, bit of a shame. The description's decent, as is the font for once, and once again, we do not get a runtime, which is always super annoying. Lastly, we get a catalogue on the inside of the case. Now this was a massive help in figuring out the collection, but what's interesting is that you can see what dates certain releases had, and you can also see just how messy the release schedule was and how little the spine numbers actually mean. Overall then, this is an excellent example of exploitation cinema. It's grimy, it's dirty, it's uncomfortable. While it does suffer with its pacing now and then, it has a thick foreboding atmosphere, and it is just what you want from this sort of genre. Uncomfortable, miserable, yeah, it's the whole package really. Now, I'd recommend this film to people who haven't seen it, but I'm guessing most of my audience have seen it. If you haven't, and you can handle the subject matter in this film, so I do stress that, it's not a happy film, it's quite a miserable, depressing, dark film. If you feel like you can hack it, I'd definitely recommend it. It's a very important little bit of history as well, especially in the video nasty stuff. Worth checking out. But it is absolutely ruined by this version of the film. This is absolutely awful. It's heavily cut. There's no special features. The quality of the print is absolutely awful. If you are going to watch it, avoid this release at all costs. Obviously I've got this kaleidoscope version, but this is one of many with this print on it. It's nice, it's remastered, it's restored, but obviously it's still cut in the UK. There are plenty of versions though. Boutique labels have put it out. I think there's even a 4K coming out soon. Loads of different versions. But if you do want to see it uncut, you're unfortunately going to have to import. Once again, you're fine because there are tons of versions available, from DVDs to Blu-rays. It's easy to find a copy of this uncut, which just makes it even stupider that the BBFC still insists on cutting it when it is so easy to get his hands on an uncut version. So, a great film ruined by an awful, awful release. Next week, we are going to be dipping back into the Jess Franco collection. Lucky us. And we're going to be checking out the simply titled Cannibals. Jesus, somebody paid $10.99 for this. Bloody hell.